Welcome back, everyone, and Happy New Year. Today, I'm going to be showing you a little bit about the chess masters of the past. So, today's case is going to be Vladas Mikenas, who was a Estonian master. He was born in Tallinn in the last century. And in this case, he's going to beat Alexander Kotov in a brilliant, brilliant game. Now, most people have heard about Kotov, yeah, because he wrote the book called How to Think Like a Grandmaster. Okay. Unfortunately for Mikenas, his books were not quite as popular to this day, so not a lot of people have heard about him. Outside of the chess world, if you say that name, nobody knows anymore. So what I want to do is bring some of these old masters back to life, so you get to see the beauty of their moves too. So without further ado, we get into the Dutch, and Mikenas is going to be on the white side, playing against Alexander Kotov on the black side of the Dutch. Now, I should tell you that Vladas beat most of the world champions of his time. So it's not like this was a fluke. No, he was actually at that level for a very long time. Let's take a look. We start with a Dutch Gambit because after e4, black kind of has to take. Otherwise, what do you do? Do you play e6 and let me get the whole center all for myself? Or do you play knight f6 and get destroyed by my pawns coming at you? So you kind of have to take. And what's the point of the gambit for white? White is saying that if you took the pawn, I want it back now. And when you defend it, would you like another one? And if you would take it, which is what happened at the game, then thanks for the open files you gifted me, along with the light squares you gifted me, along with the easy development you gifted me, along with the center you gifted me. So many gifts, all for one man. Okay, and so Vladas was very happy to get this position because a lot of people don't accept the gambit. One of the best moves is considered d5, and you just give back the pawn, or you get something like that. You know, so that's what's supposed to happen. Instead, Kotov maybe didn't know this very well, but he took the gambit, and so we have the exciting Dutch gambit on our hands. d5 is all right because it blocks the pawns. It tries to get the bishop out, tries to solve the problem of the black pieces, but also creates a weakness. After 95, how do you deal with this horsey just standing in the middle of everywhere? Do you try to trade him off? How? Not with a pawn. And if you try to do it with a knight, it's not so easy because first of all, I have bishop b5. Second of all, even if you do take it, I take back. You go away, I gobble your pawn. Gobble, gobble. All right, so you can't even trade him off. Same thing for knight d7. I'll probably play something like bishop d3 or just good developing moves. Bishop g5 is also decent. All right. So on that note, Kotov said, whoa, 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 whoa. How about I take out my bishop and then I'll take out my knight and then get rid of your horsey who's really ruining my thunder here. Okay. So after bishop f5, he was shocked to find g4 staring at him. Mikenas is not kidding around. He wants to come after the bishop and then the knight too. After the chimney's gone, who's protecting the light squares? Who's protecting queen h5 check? Nobody. If you play knight e4, you also have ugly pawns. So he decided to try and trade off that horsey who was annoying him for so long. Right? But the problem here is the king has no squares. On top of that, who's protecting light squares? Nobody. So when I come for your king, who's helping your king? Not this guy. And not even the pawn, because I'll take it, which is what happened in the game. Okay, if you take, I just win the exchange. And if you try to pin me, which is what happened, it turns out we have a cute little trick where we keep the knight there. If you do nothing, I'm just going to come and checkmate you and get your bishop. So you have to do something. He tries to develop, thinking that maybe later he can pin and win that knight. But too late, because we're already after your bishop. Okay, if you take right away, check and mate. Okay, if you don't take right away, or if you take that way, we have this amazing move, queen takes. So this game has a little bit of everything, starting from an amazing gambit to all kinds of queen sacrifices. Okay, after bishop takes, mate. That would be a short game indeed. But of course, Kotov is, after all, a grandmaster. That's why he wrote that book. And instead of taking like a little boy, he decides to give back a knight. After he gives back the knight on e5, the whole idea is the king can run away. So in that variation with queen takes, this is no longer mate, because bishop takes, the king can run away with an extra queen. All right. So that's why he throws the knight back at white and tells Mikenas, if you take with knight, I'll be very happy. Please make me happy. But no. Instead, we take back with the pawn, and you can even take this knight, but I'll just run away. What happened after this weird opening? We got the center, we got the f-file, we got better development, you got the ugly bishop number 2. You got the ugly king side, because if you ever castle again, I may just come back for mate for what I wanted the first time. Okay? And if you castle long, it turns out it's not so easy to castle there either, as you see. After e6, the bishop is not very safe, but if you take right away, meh, there aren't enough attackers. We need more reinforcements now, which is why he gets ready for the real attack, taking out the bishop first, protecting all the pawns, making sure this guy is buried for life, and getting ready to castle. After his king is safe, he can start asking questions about the black queen. Okay. When the queen disappears, it turns out the queen has no good squares. Because if she goes here, bishop b5. If she goes here, bishop b5 later. Let's say you castle right now. How do you deal with bishop b5? This annoying pin is going to haunt you as I bring my knight on this file, as your queen is pinned to the knight, the same way the knight is pinned to the queen. Your knight goes, I take the queen. Your queen goes, I take your king. All right. For that reason, black has to do something fast and urgent. Instead of castling, he had to spend another tempo on the queen, waste another move when he should have been developing and taking care of the piece race. Okay. While you using all those queen moves for no reason, we're gonna do something productive, like protect 2 pawns at once. Okay, now the pawns are safe. We have a fortress against your dark square bishop. You can finally castle. But did you solve the problem of that knight? Did you really help him out? Or did you just leave him there and desert him? I think you abandoned him, which asks the question, how are you saving the knight against my bishop? After bishop b5, what do you do about your knight? It's not so simple. Knight b4, I just kick him back. If you do nothing, I will take. Okay. Apparently, the best move is something like bishop e8, trying to hold on to the horsey and getting rid of the bishop that's in the rook's way. Maybe we can trade off our rook, and maybe we can squeeze our way to a drawn endgame, but not today, not in this game. Kotov goes for an unnatural move. Usually, these unnatural moves are wrong. If you do something unnatural, you will get punished for unnatural ideas. Right? If you play a natural move, at least like bishop e8, it does a lot of good things, right? It solves some problems. But after knight b8, you're just going back, and now it's time for us to go forward. Here's a little tactic. You can try to find a tactic for 3 seconds and see if you can win at least a pawn. There are targets white can use. Can you find the 2 targets that allow for the tactic? Ready? 3, 2, 1. If you found queen f2, good job. It's a double attack on the 2 things with no helpers. The pawn has no helpers, and the queen is only protecting once, while my queen and rook are attacking twice. Okay, for that reason, the double attack wins a pawn. But the real extraordinary stuff comes right after. Okay, now Mikenas is trying to figure out how to stop the black rooks. Because if the black rooks can come into f8, f5, start targeting these pawns, maybe trade off a bishop, maybe play c6 against any knight jumps, maybe black can survive magically and trade off the queens, go to an endgame. But if rook f5, it's kind of unpleasant because we don't really want to let them double up, right? So how do we stop this process? Here's the real quiz question for you guys. How to win in style. We're already winning, but this move is so classy. White to play and win. Feel free to pause the video if need be. Otherwise, I'll give you 3 seconds. Ready? Psst. Block their rooks. Okay. 3, 2, 1. And congratulations if you found the very stylish rook f6. After rook f6 is the classic exchange sack with the 2 pawns guarding the rook. If you don't take, first of all, I blocked your rooks, but also I have the whole f file to myself with all those targets that the f file gives me. Okay, and if you do take, oh my goodness, how are you going to deal with the bishop sniping through your position along with this monster pawn chain? They used to be nice, now they're monstrous. They used to be powerful, now they're gigantic. Okay, and this pawn chain is going to kill the black rooks, which have no files and no play since they're too busy guarding the pawns. Okay, the black queen is killed by the pawns too because it has to hide somewhere and it has nowhere else to go. Okay, after queen f7, there was actually a very cute mate that I want to demonstrate because it's very cute here. But his move is just as good because it still gets the job done, but the mate would have been faster. So let's take a look at the mate in 6 moves. Knight a4. This is a computer mate because it's a really hard move to find. The whole idea is check, pawn takes, checkmate. How do you stop it? You want to take this guy? It turns out we have mate anyways. Check, check, mate. Okay, and if you don't allow knight b6, well, first of all, that's not so easy. Like, let's say you go for something like, I don't know, bishop c6. I'm not even sure what saves the king here. It's not so simple at all. But the point is, I also have knight c5. If you find a way to stop my first threat, I also have the knight c5 threat with queen b7 coming. Okay, so it's really not that simple to stop this mate. In fact, it's impossible. Mate in 6. Okay, but that's a hard move to find, eh? Knight a4 with the idea of using the diagonal that we just opened. All right. In the game, he won in a cuter way, but it did take a bit longer. So let's take a look. He starts with the pawn. He keeps going. He wants the light squares. And when the bishop comes, we trade off the defender and come after the king. The cute thing here is you don't even have time for rook b8. So you're stuck guarding all your weaknesses, all your targets, as my pawns start going all over the place. The a pawn is going, later the h pawn is going too, and the bishop is firing. All the white pieces are just perfect, bellissimo, all right, where they should be. And so black tries to kick out the attackers, but it's too late. The queen snuggles her way into the dark squares, into the Swiss cheese, and it's very hard to seal that cheese because you don't have a dark square bishop, Mr. Kotov. And so Kotov tries to run away for his life, but tactics. Okay, if you take this way, we have the invasion with the rook. That should do the trick because of queen d6 later on. And if you run away, thank you. I'll just take everything, or mate you for that matter. Okay, so he can't even run away. And if he takes the other way, well, that's a free rook. Okay, so even though material is, almost equal, and when I say almost, we should say 3 extra pawns for white, black is not losing by material. Black is losing by position. Black is losing because the knight is not a piece at the moment. It's a ghost. The rook cannot really be called a rook. It can't fight because of this giant pawn chain we've established. And my bishop, this Swiss cheese that it gets, too powerful, too much to handle. Right? Let's see how the game ends. We go into the end game and the final breakthrough. It's not enough to have 1 plus pawn. Let's get more. And the pawn chain is not just good for existing. It's good for promoting because it's very hard to stop all the pawns. If you try this way, oh my goodness, too many scary pawns. Rook g1 and choo-choo all the way to the end, unstoppable. And if you don't take, which is what happened, we're going to get another h pawn to be amazing. Now, not only do we have the f pawn, the h pawn, and the a pawn all coming to the end. Okay, the knight tries to stop them, and here's where we get more classy chess. First of all, we push to scare the rook back. Now we scare the rook into h8 to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And more pawns coming. We're not done yet. As if 3 pawns were not enough, here comes the 4th. You can't take. We have the very cute little bishop b8 tactic that you'll see later on as well, with interference of the rook. All right? And if you try to block all the pawns this way, we interfere with your knight and your rook. Your knight can stay here, and if your rook takes, we promote. Okay, so this is just child's play. This is mopping up the position. This part is pretty easy, but it's very nice how he did it. So he's just gonna promote all his pawns. And at this point, black had enough. Black said, okay, you got me, good game. So the main parts that I really liked were the classy rook f6 idea, right? Anytime you have two advanced pawns, you want to put a rook between them. So anytime they take, you have two advanced protected, connected pass pawns. And those pawns were real killers in this game. An idea you should remember. Okay. And apart from that, at the start of the game, the Gambit proved very useful. As we destroyed their light squares, their pieces never got to comfortably come out, and we refuted the Dutch with this e4 Gambit. So I hope you like his games. I hope you'll remember Mikenas, and I hope to bring you more chess masters of the past in the near future. Thanks for watching. Until next time.